What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about American Horror Story, and what I will admit is a crazy theory. In fact, I'm not even sure I would be happy with this, but I just wanted to throw it out there to see what you guys think about it, whether you've thought about it or not. And that is, what if everything that took place in Murder House, Asylum, Coven, Freak Show, Hotel, the entire series thus far, is just a show put on by Margaret Booth or her company that survives her after the end of this season? Now, the one thing I should say here is, in my recent review, I kind of railed against the fact that in the 100th episode of the series, they didn't do enough callbacks. In fact, I said there was no callbacks. I was wrong. A lot of people went down to the comments section and corrected me, and I'm really sorry about that. The mention of her trying to buy up all these properties just really kind of went over my head upon my first viewing. I've gone back, I looked at it, you guys are right. She is trying to buy some of the more iconic places from the series. But I think we can have a little bit more fun by looking into this just a little bit further with everything that we saw in last night's episode. Over the events of the last 5 years, since that fateful night in 1984, Margaret has taken the opportunity to grow her brand and wealth by using her celebrity status as the survivor of 2 massacres and buying up some of the most iconic serial killer and murder spree areas across the United States. One of the things that she does with these properties is put on shows for the people who decide to stay there, like in a hotel situation, or however she ends up setting these areas up for multiple people to come in and experience the horrors that she lived through those 2 nights. And of course, as the audience and fans of the show, we know that she's lying about all of this. It's a big part of the episode. The fact that she was the killer throughout both of these nights, and nobody really knows that yet. And that definitely seems like something that's going to come back and bite her in the ass before the very end of this season. But it does really make you wonder, will her company survive without her, even if she dies by the end? If the episode took at least a little time to explain that she's trying to buy up some of the properties from this show that we know thus far, and that in the late 80s or early 90s, the company is trying to figure out new and interesting ways to keep their brand alive and to keep people interested in murder and mayhem, maybe at some point this corporation, with or without Margaret, is going to evolve into a television-like show that ends up being American Horror Story. And everything that we've seen in this show thus far is just a recreation of all of these iconic American moments that are simply horrifying. But in order to raise the stakes, that's when they start adding ghosts and everything we know from the series since the very beginning. And look, it doesn't even have to be a show. It could be dinner theater or whatever they end up making it, like people staying in this place and they play out the story around them. And we, the audience, are the people staying in the hotel, in the asylum, wherever the overnight stay is, in order to get the entire story. And all the actors coming back, the anthology series feel of all this, even though they're all kind of connected, is explained away by just actors reprising their roles while making everything feel in this area that America is truly a horrifying place. And her company really took that concept and ran with it to the point where it absolutely blew up for the last 10 years, and they've been thriving and coasting off of all these shows that they're putting on. And you know what? Another reason I find this idea kind of amusing, if all of this is a show, then it would be playing off of this meta joke that as soon as a show starts, the longer it goes on, the more it becomes a little bit of a parody of itself. Take the first 5 seasons of American Horror Story, especially if they're trying to tie it to these fictional places that are based around real life places throughout the continental United States. In the first season, you have Murder House, a historic building in America with a history, icons, and ideas that would really fill up an entire season. You move over to Briarcliff, you tell a story related to witches and all the concepts related to that from America, the horrors of a freak show, and then you go to the Hotel Cortez and you tell probably a more wacky story, but still firmly planted in American lore. Then you go into Roanoke, and then you go into Cult, and then you go into Apocalypse, right? There's just this idea that the show is getting long in the tooth, and they're doing all of these different things in order to keep it relevant. Kind of the meta inside joke here, where they start to switch it up in the 6th season with a documentary feel and then trying to get up into the whole found footage nonsense, with culture trying to tell a story that kind of hits the cultural zeitgeist at the time with the events of the 2016 election. And then you go even further beyond by taking some of the most iconic things from your series thus far, smashing them together and telling a story about the end of the world that has really nothing to do with America, right? So if you really take it in that context, this is all just a show and Margaret's company is trying to figure out all of these different connections and make sure that their brand is still profitable and they're telling stories that are scaring people or at least keeping people's interest enough after this has been going on for like 10 years, then I really do think that that's probably the ultimate meta joke that American Horror Story could tell. Also, it would allow this season to be the ultimate prequel to that meta joke, while it allows season 10 to play off a story that will end the entire narrative and put everything together in kind of a nice way. I feel like this would also really help establish why so many things in American Horror Story take place in Los Angeles. If that's where Margaret's company is established, then it would make sense that they would buy up everything surrounding that area and turning all of these locations into interactive theater experiences, or as I said earlier, maybe even just a television show that puts the entire story together and really profits on their brand. You know what? I don't really want to believe this. I thought it was kind of a fun theory based off everything we've seen in 1984, plus everything that we know from the entire series. But in honesty, I feel like it would really cheapen the experience of the entire show, and it's not something I would really want them to explore in order just to connect everything and make everything make sense by the end of the 10th season. If anything else, it would kind of seem lazy, and I feel like most people listening to this would agree with me. So you know what? I'm going to throw it to you guys in the comment section. Why don't you tell me what your thoughts on this are? Do you like the idea of Margaret just putting on these shows, or her company? Because let's face it, I don't think she's getting out of this season alive. She's already kind of had 2 near misses at this point. But the simple idea of her company kind of continuing without her and being able to prosper throughout the 90s and the early 2000s all the way up to our current modern day as they're putting on these shows and building the lore of all of these iconic places and the stories around them. It might be interesting. I'm sure there's going to be somebody in the comments who has a way of connecting all of this and making it make sense, and maybe even building in a premise for season 10 in order to tie all of this together. But I'm going to leave it at that. Hope everyone is having a fantastic day. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell over by the subscriber button to notify you every single time I upload. And also, guys, I don't say this enough, but why don't you go down to the description section below, hit that link, and go follow me on Twitter where we can talk about American Horror Story or The Walking Dead or the Saw franchise, the Halloween franchise, just in general anything horror related, or maybe movies, box office, or anything else like that. It's so much easier to talk to me on Twitter, and I'm always down to interact with you guys on there. It's so much easier than this platform. Hope everyone is having a fantastic day. As I said, it's been real.